Domestic Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. Dan, I see you sipping on something already. Why don't you kick it off?
I'm drinking a beer from Kilowatt Brewing Company here in San Diego. I've had them on before. They have one of my favorite beers out here in San Diego. Unfortunately, is what I wanted to go get today. They no longer produce it. It was their mango IPA, and they use Alfonso mangoes from India. They're like the super sweet mango. And the guy I was talking to said they just got too expensive to import them to make their beer. But they're a very good eclectic brewery. They're very much known for like their small batch eclectic beer styles. Their tap rooms are like, I don't know how to describe it. There's like black lights everywhere, like the hippie felt posters that you would color in and put a black light on when you were a little kid. Bunch of games that you could play. It just feels like a hippie's like a dreamland. But they're actually, have won a lot of awards as well. In 2018 they won the Great American Beer Festival chocolate beer category, bronze medal. 2019 they won for their Belgium double. In 21, they won for a specialty category and gold medal for their maple smoked Maibach, and a two-timer winner in 20 and 21 for their macadamia stout. So I mean, they're legit. They got a real fun atmosphere. Unfortunately, I didn't get their mango, so I went with their guava. It's their guava 250 IPA. It's got a 3.7 on Untapped. It's not quite as like fruit forward as their mango, but it's got some nice like floral hop notes to it. Kind of smooth, nothing crazy for me. But I like the brewery. I'll keep going back because they keep pumping out those like small eclectic batches, and hopefully they'll get those mangoes back. What about you? What are you drinking?
Yeah, it sounds like a cool spot. I'm doing Distill Brewery. It's based out of Norma, Illinois, so down by ISU, where you and I went to college. So,
Go Birds.
um, yeah, Distill. You can trace their roots back to the first 5-gallon batch of beer made by founder and CEO Matt Potts. He did a homebrew kit that his wife bought him for Christmas back in 1995. We've heard this story before. But after many years of practicing law and brewing professionally in Elmwood, Matt and Lynn opened the first Distill restaurant and brew works in Normal in November of 2007. They had much success, national recognition from awards they had won. So in 2013, they expanded to a larger facility in Bloomington, and then were forced to expand again in June of 2016. They began construction on Distill Brewery and Beer Hall. It's this massive 47,000 square foot, $15 million brewery complex down in Normal. Unfortunately, you and I weren't there,
Yeah,
at
gotta
that
check it out.
time. Yeah, we were prior to that, but on about 6 acres of land. It's a huge spot. So that opened to the public in 2017. They actually do contract brewing at that facility as well. But the beer I have here is called Hawaii 5 Ale. It's 3.37 on Untapped, 6.4%. It's a blonde ale with pineapple, coconut, mango, peach, and guava. And I feel like it's one of those drinks that some people either love it or you hate it, and that's why
Mm,
the score is where it is.
got it.
I don't think there's really an in between. I personally like it. It transports you to a beach. It's got that coconut in there. You don't see coconut in a beer too often.
Tastes like
But I
sunscreen.
but I feel like after the way this bear season has gone in this first 3 weeks, we all need a little bit of a getaway. So this helps with that. But here to help us break down the first 3 weeks is our next guest. It's Herb Howard. He's the Chicago Bears beat reporter for the Bigs, co-host of Herb and Two podcast, and radio personality at WVON on iHeartRadio. You can find him on Twitter at Herb Howard 411. Herb, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Absolute honor and a pleasure, man. Thank y'all for having me back.
Appreciate it.
Y'all had
Let's
some
let
good brews there today.
try it. We gotta drink something to take care of being a Chicago sports fan in this current era. Our teams are not doing too well. Speaking of, let's focus on the Bears for this episode. Is this where we thought we would be 3 weeks into the season? I know you've been covering them. You've seen them up close, preseason, training camp. Is this a complete disaster?
A lot of
Yeah, I don't
hype.
think this. I don't think anybody could have foresaw this kind of start to the season. I thought most people had talked themselves into, at least 7 wins. Some people had talked themselves into 12 wins, and so everybody was feeling good right before the season. They ended up signing Yannick Ngakoue, and so you thought that would bolster the pass rush. So far through 3 games, they've only got one sack, can't create any pressure, can't get on the field on third down, and the offense just seems stuck in the mud. And so has to be an absolute worst case scenario for the players, the coaches, the front office, and certainly for the fan base. This has been terrible, and it's not just that you're losing; it's the way you're losing. It's the way you lost to the Packers
Right.
in the home opener. It's the way you got completely rolled against, albeit the Super Bowl champ and the reigning MVP, but to get rolled like they did in Kansas City, and then to make Baker Mayfield look like someone other than Baker Mayfield, it just hasn't been a really good start to the season. It's probably as bad as it could be.
So where
Yikes.
does this team, yeah, I mean, where does this team go from here? I know there's a lot of fans that are already looking to next year and the
Yeah.
draft, and everybody's projecting there's a 38% chance that the Bears are going to get the first pick. And so it's like we're 3 weeks into the season and we're giving
Draft
up
season.
already.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've watched the games, that's what it feels like. There's nothing here. Where does this team go? You know, do we have any coaches that we could keep? Is the GM on the hot seat too? Is there any players here that we can, salvage for a future run at some point? I mean, what do we have to look forward to here?
No, I feel that, Evan. I know a lot of people are feeling, like it's doomsday already and they're ready to turn the page. I just
Right.
can't allow myself to go there. Like, it's
Mhm.
13 straight losses that we've seen. It's 13 straight times I've gone into that locker room after a game to a losing locker room. And it's deflating, man. And it gets old and it gets monotonous. And I don't want to think that this season is going to go down the same road. Now, obviously, it's certainly off to a sprinting start down the same road, but I'm just trying to give myself some hope, some belief that they can find a way to turn this thing around and salvage some semblance of a respectable season. And so I told myself 2 weeks ago, and I talked about this on a couple of shows, that I was going to give the Bears 2 more weeks to see if this was an absolute dumpster fire or not. And I didn't expect them to go to Kansas City and win. I didn't expect it to go as bad as it did, but I didn't expect them to win. And so I said, if they lose at home to the Denver Broncos, then it's done. Like then it's done. The bottom has completely fallen out. And if you want to start firing people, if you want to start, trading, anybody that has some trade value, you talk about guys like Jalen Johnson or Darnell Mooney, then I'd be open to those discussions. So I'm going to give them just another week before I get to that point and say this thing is already over, because there's a scenario where they can turn this thing around, right? I don't know that I believe it. I'm just trying to sell this to myself, so I'll try to sell it to y'all too. If they're able to show up and get a win at home against a Denver Broncos team that everybody just saw give up 70 points and lose by 50, right? And albeit they're favored to come into your house and beat you after they gave up 70, they're favored to come to your crib and beat you. So that's crazy. But if the Bears are able to pull off a victory there, then maybe they can ride that wave in a short week, get out to Washington. I think Washington is a beatable team, probably better than this Bears team right now, but still a beatable team. If they can do that, now you're feeling pretty decent about yourself. You're sitting at 2-3. You can start to kind of turn the narrative, and I'm sure we'll start to hear, I told you guys so, and you guys were all wrong, and you'll have this bit of a arrogant, defiant approach in some of these press conferences, I'm sure, but it may also give them a little bit of a boost that they need with the big rivalry game. You got Minnesota coming to Soldier Field in Week 6, and they may be able to scratch and claw themselves back into a 500 record. Do I think that's going to happen? Right. No, but it's not something that I can't absolutely see taking place. And so, I'm just holding out hope that they can turn this thing around next week and then kind of rip off a couple of more.
That's best case scenario. Like absolute best case scenario.
Absolute best case.
I think if we look at it with like a lens, I don't know, more, my opinion, a little more just like, what do I think in my heart of hearts? Because it's going to happen is there's no fight in this team. And that's kind of what you were alluding to in some of your responses, right? Like this team just doesn't have it. Where are the dogs at in this team? Who's going to step up and no longer accept 13 straight losses?
Right. They won't even acknowledge it though, Dan. Like they won't even acknowledge that it's real. And so you talk to Flus and he's like, yo, Flus, 13 straight losses, that has to have some type of cumulative impact on the morale, on the mentality. It's like, oh no, it's a completely different team. That was last year. We've got 30-some new players that don't know anything about those last 10 losses. Yes, they do. They can feel it. It's apparent. And when the game is on the line, nobody feels like we're going to make the play to win it because nobody's done it in almost a calendar year.
And it's a result-based league, right? So I guess where I'm going with the question would be who's accountable for this? Who's the most accountable for 13 straight losses? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the players? Is it the GM? Most people would probably say it goes all the way up to the owners, right? That are just allowing this to where they won't fire a coach mid-season. They won't try to pivot or change anything. They're going to let people play out their contracts because they don't want to pay them out. Who is responsible for 13 straight losses? Who is most responsible?
I think most responsible is the coaching staff. I think that, Ryan Poles, for the most part, I think people do feel like he's brought in some talent. Now, I don't know that everybody's agreed with all of his decisions in terms of things like letting Roquan Smith go and the trade and all those types of things, or passing on Jalen Carter in the draft. I think, he's made some debatable decisions, but for the most part, I think, and I mean, going back to, post-draft, pre-training camp, people thought he had done a decent enough job to have an influx of talent into this roster. And so that's all he can do is bring in the talent. He doesn't coach, he doesn't play. And so I would say it's not on him. If you gave him a passable grade in the spring, then you can't go back and say, I don't like his grade now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the coaching now, once I give you the players, then you've got to develop them. You've got to put them in positions to win. You've got to come up with schemes that allow them to be in advantageous situations. And I just don't think that's happened. Like, you talk about bringing in a defensive coach. He's a guy that was a DC for years in this league. And then you have a defense that's ranked dead last in almost every single metric since he's taken over the job. That just can't be. And it's not just about, we're rebuilding, we had young players and we're breaking this thing down to the studs last year. Sure, you can go with that. But even when that's the case, if you believe, if a coach comes in with a good system, you can start to see some of those signs earlier than a year and a half. You can start to see things kind of turn around. You can start to see some development in some of these players, and you just have not seen any of that with any kind of consistency since he's been here. And for a defensive-minded coach, I think that's where you kind of have to start this thing. And then you also put this coaching staff together. You're responsible for who the OC is. You're responsible for who the DC is, or was, or might be, or used to be, or whatever's going on there. Like, you're responsible for all those things. And so I think that, I would start at the coaching staff, but then you also got to put some onus on the players as well. I'm not absolving them of their play on the field, but I would start with the coaching staff.
I'm seeing a lot of finger pointing, Herb, when I'm looking at everybody's responses to, Fields, it's not my fault, the coaches, and then everybody wants to walk it back, obviously, afterwards. But then you got the coaches, hey, my players are on IR. We got Braxton Jones out, Jalen Johnson's not practicing, Eddie Jackson's not practicing, Kyler Gordon's out, Tevin Jenkins out. So they can use that as an excuse, right? That the players are injured. What are we going to do? We had all these injuries. Sorry, we didn't win. And then you got the GM. Well, I gave them the players that they wanted for their scheme, and the scheme sucks. So everybody's kind of pointing the finger, right? So
moves need to be made, right?
I think that's where fans are like, whose fault is this? And I was talking to Dan about this on our show last week. I've never seen so many fans. I mean, there's a lot of analysts too, but a lot of fans pulling up the all 22, like looking at the plays, trying to figure out what the hell is happening out there. Yeah. I've never seen that in any, Bears season, with everybody just getting so involved. Like, I'm going to figure this out myself. So it's crazy. But if, let's say, I don't know that this is going to happen, but if the Broncos come in and they just throttle us, beat us by 20 points, what happens then? Like, should Eberflus be fired on
for the first time in how long, right? Team. We don't fire head coaches. When's the last time they fired a head coach mid-season? It doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, it's not something that they've done before. And I think that, if they go 0-4 and that Denver Broncos team, who everybody just saw completely embarrass themselves and give up 70 points, I don't think it'd be too early to start pulling the trigger on guys and say, hey, we got to make changes here. You got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And I think that would have to go all the way up to Kevin Warren, the new president of the team, to say, no, we're not doing this. We are not doing this. I came in, the head coach and all these things were already in place, but we're not doing this. And I don't like where this is headed, and we can stop it right now. And so, a lot of people say, once you're in a hole, stop digging, right? And I think that you may just need to say, okay, we've seen enough of this. And I think that, after 4 weeks, if the Broncos come into your house and handily beat you, then you're going to hear the boo birds rain down from Soldier Field by halftime. You're going to talk about, how disappointed the fan base is. And I think at that point, then somebody from the front office, Kevin Warren, would have to then step in and say, okay, what are we doing here? At least call everybody to the carpet and say, what are we doing here? And if you aren't satisfied with what you hear, then Monday, Tuesday, we got to make some changes with some of the staffing and personnel around here. So I don't think that would be too early, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
But I guess I feel like there's no second option at this point, because you got, Alan Williams is gone. Luke Getsy's looked, I think, worse than Eberflus with some of these plays, calling the same play 3 times in a row. And some of these weird mistakes. So you can't elevate him. If you can Eberflus, you don't have a DC to turn to. I don't know who they would go to, right? I mean, who would the next person be?
We got a Jeff
Yeah,
Saturday in our organization, like the Colts. Just call up,
just call him up to see if Olin Kreutz wants to come
Olin
back and do
Kreutz.
this thing or
Exactly,
something, right?
Greg
exactly.
Olson. Get
Peanut
Greg
Tillman,
Olson.
man.
Somebody. You got guys that are very, very upset with what's going on. They had their, alumni game, when the Packers came, and there were about 100 Bears alumni there, and I hung out with some of them after the game at a hotel downtown, just hanging out, and they were pissed that the Packers had just came to Soldier Field and whooped them again. And so, Tommy Harris and Bernard Berrien and Jerry Zoom, all these guys were just talking about how bad that thing looked, and it's just like, yo, I don't know like how you turn this thing around, but in terms of if they do make moves like that, I would have to go with Coach Hightower, the special teams coordinator. And I think for a number of reasons. One, I just think he's very impressive. He's a guy who's got a lot of experience in this league. He's coached some really good units in this league, but also the task of the nature of the special teams coordinator. He is the only one on the team who deals with the entirety of the roster, right? So OCs, I don't know who the backup linebacker is. I don't know who the second string nickel is. I don't know these types of things as an offensive coordinator, but as the special teams coordinator, I know everybody, right? Because I'm pulling from all of these different units to field my kicking team on a weekly basis on all four phases. And so I think that they are most equipped to kind of take over in an interim situation, in a sudden change situation. I think we've seen that before, where special teams coordinators have stepped up to be head coach. I remember Chris Tabor did it when Matt Nagy was here and he was out with COVID. And so I think that because of their relationship and their dynamic to the entirety of the roster, they're best suited to do it. But I also think that Hightower is a really good coach.
Yeah. I hate the reluctance to change. I just think that it's why we continue to struggle. I forget who it was on Twitter. They put out NFL teams over the last 162 games, like it would be a baseball season, and put them in their divisions. And we were in the same roster makeup as like the Browns, the Giants. We're one of the original franchises, a storied franchise, and we're with the bottom of the barrel here over the last 162. It looks like shit, smells like shit. It's shit. Like this, the reluctance to change is what pisses me off, because I'm a big NBA fan. The Milwaukee Bucks, one of the best teams in the league, just went ahead and made another trade to improve their roster when they're already going to the finals. And then you have the Bears and teams that we have here in Chicago are just reluctant to pivot. They're reluctant to say, this shit's not working. Trade some players, fire some coaches. Let's move in a different direction. We love to hold on to our homegrown talent. We're holding out hope that they're going to develop. It's year 3 of Justin Fields. Still can't make a quick read and throw the ball on time. He's athletic as shit. Not going to doubt that. But it's just, it needs to change. And if Kevin Warren, this is a results-based organization. If he is really going to be a man of his word and wants to win and turn this thing around, if I'm him, I'm pulling people and telling them, thanks for coming, but you're not my guy. I'm going to clear house right now. Like, I'm looking at the roster. I'm looking at what you're all doing. You're ruining talent, right? So I'm just frustrated. I did a rant last episode too, and it just sucks to watch this team. I have an interesting question on top of that rant that will kind of change the subject, but who is the best player on this roster that if gets traded will have ultimate success in the NFL? Who is somebody that needs to get off this team, off this franchise, and gets to a different place, and they're going to blow into a star?
I think Jalen Johnson ends up playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And I thought that for some time. I think that's a really, really good defense. They could use a little bit of help in the secondary. That's where he's from. You talk about Northern California, and he's also a guy who's up for a contract. And if you are not going to re-sign him, if you aren't going to extend him, then he's a guy that has some trade value for you on this roster. And so you talk about a San Francisco 49ers team that's looking to seriously contend for a Super Bowl this year. And then you say, okay, well, let's get that corner. I think that he's a guy that if you can put him in better situations, he can be really, really productive. The Bears, listen, they play their vanilla defense. It's what they want to do. Fine. You want to rush with 4, you want to drop 7, no problem. I get it. We've seen it be successful here before, but it's only successful if you have the horses up front. If you don't, then it's not going to be successful. You end up just leaving your guys from the back end trying to cover for 5, 6, 7 seconds at a time, and nobody's going to be successful in that kind of system. But I think if you put him with the DC, who isn't scared to bring some exotic blitzes, who isn't scared to disguise some coverages, I think he's a guy who can have really a lot of success in another system. I think he's been really good here, but I think he can blossom into a perennial Pro Bowl performer in a defense like what the 49ers have.
Yeah.
Seen this floated a little bit on Twitter about Justin Fields just needing a reset and being benched for maybe a game. Do you think that is something that works for players or something that would work for Justin? Or do you think that this is kind of a crazy idea and you got to let him play through these struggles and see where he's at by the end of the season?
Yeah, I don't I don't I don't write off that philosophy just offhand in and of itself. I don't think it applies here because I think the issue with Justin is more so systemic in terms of what they're trying to do with him, what and who they want him to be. So I don't think he just needs to. I just need to take a step back, take a deep breath, come back and collect myself, and I'll be fine in the same system. I think they have to do something different with him. I was looking at some clips from him even earlier today, and I forgot who posted it on Twitter, but it was clips from his rookie year and the ball even then was coming out quicker, right? He was more decisive with his throws, with his reads, and just making decisions. He was doing the things that made us all so excited when they took him at 11 out of the draft from Ohio State because we had seen him make these throws. We had seen him light up Clemson. We had seen him do these things against these elite level defenses, and it just it hasn't happened for him, in this particular system. And I think that sometimes when you have a guy who comes from a Hall of Famer, right? You talk about Aaron Rodgers, and I coach Aaron Rodgers. Did you really coach Aaron Rodgers, or does Aaron Rodgers just bring you with him? You know what I mean? Like he was Aaron Rodgers before you got there, and you were never his OC. All of these guys, all of them are doing this for the first time. Kevin Warren, first time president. Ryan Poles, first time GM. Flus, first time head coach. Getsy, first time OC. Alan Williams has been a DC before, but like it's just there's so many people doing this thing for the very first time, and I just don't know if they're able to find the answers. And so I don't know that Justin just needs to sit down for a week or two and then he'll find it. I think that a lot of things need to change around him so that you can tap into the potential and the skill set that everybody knows he has inside of him. But I'm not convinced you're going to be able to pull it out at this point. But I hope so because I know it's in there. But something has to change to pull it out other than sitting them for a week.
And it's just an insane idea too, like you said, with a first-time GM, first-time coach. Is like if you look at the both sides of the ball too. I mean, do we have any kind of veteran presence on either side of the ball, either that can, rally a defense or, go into that offensive huddle and say, all right, we need to get this first down. I mean, there's really nobody there. And I wonder what each side, what especially the offense is going to look like, come next season. Is Darnell Mooney still going to be on this roster? Is Chase Claypool still going to be on this roster? You'd think DJ Moore will definitely be here. Justin Fields, I can't say for certain anymore that he's still going to be here, especially if we have the first pick. Um, you know, Chase Claypool, let's look at him first. Do you think he's still on the roster by the end of the season? Is he somebody that's a trade candidate as well?
I don't know what his trade value would be. And I know that a lot of times, a lot of GMs, they don't want to admit that they made a mistake. And you spent a second round pick on him and ultimately turned into the 32nd overall pick on him. But I think it's just, you got to be, the Bears tend to think that they know something other people don't. And that's very rarely been the case. And for me, it's a huge red flag when Mike Tomlin and that Steelers organization says, we're done with this young talent. They don't cast off young talent very often. And when they do, it's a red flag. And so for me, if Mike Tomlin says, I can't tap into this kid anymore, I'm done with him, I don't know that the Bears have what it takes to tap into him either. And the Bears did that twice last year because the two organizations that I just view as a huge red flag when they get rid of young talent is the Steelers and the Patriots. And if Bill Belichick says, we can't tap into N'Keal Harry, and the Bears like, oh, but we can, bullshit. No, you can't, right? And so I don't think that that's necessarily going to pan out. And we'll see if they choose to find a team friendly deal with him, or if he tests the market and somebody else rolls the dice. But I just don't see him being ultra productive the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So we're back to square one then. I feel like we don't have any what is this? Who's a holdover for next year? What do we have left?
I think you're just talking about DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. You got a young offensive line that you want to build around. You got your right tackle. They think they have their left tackle. I like Braxton Jones too. I like Tevin Jenkins, but he can't stay healthy. You've signed Nate Davis, so he'll be there. do they sign Moon? Like, do they sign DJ Mooney and I mean, do they sign Darnell Mooney? I'm sorry, and bring him back? And if then that may be what your nucleus kind of looks like, and then you start to look at, okay, well, will we be in the running to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Or one of these guys to come in and be an explosive, dynamic piece that you can add to this offense? Right now, it's looking like they're going to be in the top 5 of the draft, and they may have two picks in the top 5 of the draft. And then what do you want to do with those picks? And ultimately, there's a lot that they don't know yet. But I think that it won't take long to really start to have this thing come into complete focus to say, okay, this thing is done. I think Sunday is Judgment Day for the Bears. I think Sunday you either win or you lose, and it's done. You win and you give yourself some hope that we can go and we can turn this thing around. We've heard Justin Fields talk about, hey, the Detroit Lions were 1-5 or 1-6 last year before they turned it around. They almost made the playoffs. Flus keeps referring to his 2018 team with the Colts. We heard Ryan Post come down and refer to the 2015 season with the Chiefs when they started slow and then turn things around. And so I think if they can pull off a win on Sunday, then they can sell that at least for another week, right? And maybe turn this thing around. But if they lose on Sunday, I'm perfectly fine with them really starting to tear this thing apart.
So being around the team then as much as you are, right? Do you feel like that buy-in, like they are kind of like a us against the world squad right now, to where, I mean, you gave us the pipe dream of going, 3-3 after 6 weeks here. Is that because you kind of feel like some energy here, or you're just hoping and wishing and just like, I'm going to wake up Sunday and they're going to just be a different football team?
No, that's just me selfishly not wanting to cover another super long losing season of monotonous stories about why they lost again. And so I hope that more than I believe that, right? I think that my biggest issue in terms of my faith in them actually turning this thing around is that they haven't admitted that they've been bad. They haven't admitted that. And so they keep talking about these excuses and these reasons and all. We got these guys down, we got these guys down. And so we got these new guys and we're trying to gel together. Sir, you had an opportunity to play these people in the preseason and you said no. You chose not to play them. When the offensive line was banged up in the preseason, like, oh, we aren't going to go out there and put our number one guys out there with that group. That's going to be the group that plays for you sometimes on Sunday in the regular season, right? So you're 3 weeks in, you've got three. You started 3 different offensive line combinations. Last week you had 3 new guys in the rotation. Like, it's like, come on. So you had an opportunity to play these guys and allow them to get the reps they need to develop that chemistry. You chose not to. You don't get to retroactively go back and use that same thing as an excuse and say, oh, well, we haven't had the time. You did have the time. You forfeited it, and now this is what you got to roll with. And so, again, that's just another bad decision on in terms of the coaching staff. And
coaching comes back to coaching, like you said.
It really, really does. It really, really does. They have to do better, and if they can figure out a way to scheme up some things on Sunday, they can offer themselves a bit of an extension, a bit of a stay of execution, if you will. But if not, dead man walking.
All right, our last question. Since you're closer to the team than us, what's your prediction for Sunday? What's the score going to be?
I got Bears. I'll go Bears 2017. Close game.
Stat line? What's Fields doing?
I say Fields will go 17 of 25, 190, 2 touches and a pick. Just enough. I'm not saying they're gonna turn their whole world around and start lighting things on fire. But
who's catching
a way to win a game.
Who's catching Claypool catching another tutty?
I doubt it.
And putting his bets in right now.
I doubt it.
We're gonna get a sack.
I expect Cole Kmet to get involved. They have to get a sack. They have to get the Russell Wilson. They got to get multiple sacks. They got to get a turnover. So I think they got to get at least a couple sacks. They've got to take the ball away, and they've got to play mistake-free, football in terms of situationally on offense. They were down 21-0 to the Chiefs with 3 minutes to go in the half, and the Chiefs scored 13 more points. You know what I mean? Like, interception, fumble, and it's like you can't do those types of things and expect to win a game, especially not on the road against the Chiefs, but even at home against the Broncos. You got to play pretty clean football. You're not good enough to make those mistakes and overcome them. But I'll still pick them 20-17 in a close game at home against the Broncos.
All right. Love to hear it. Herb, thanks so much for joining us again. He's Herb Howard. He's the Chicago Bears beat reporter for the Bigs, co-host of the Herb and 2 podcast and radio personality at WVON on iHeartRadio. Herb, thanks so much.
That was my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. All right. Thanks again to our guest today, Herb Howard. Again, Herb is the Bears beat reporter for the Bigs. He's co-host of Herb and Two. That's podcast and radio personality as well for WVON on iHeartRadio. Oh, Evan, we were kind of watching this live here as we're recording. Cubs get walked off by the Braves. That's 2 straight losses to the Atlanta Braves. Cubs, I don't know their standings.
Winnable
They're
games.
half game up. Both of them winning going into like the last innings. How are we feeling? I mean, we're down bad. Chicago sports fans, you're down real bad.
Yeah, down bad. You know, the Seiya catch, I saw a lot of people getting really upset at him, but he has played so well over the past, I don't know, month that they wouldn't be in this position without him. And
Yeah,
that was prolonged consistency.
but
So
also make
he
the
misses
catch.
one catch. Yeah, it's
But
the
also
catch. He
make the
should have made the
fucking
catch.
catch.
But it was in the lights, whatever.
Make
I'm
the
not
catch.
as upset at him as other people seem to be. The guy, we wouldn't be in this position without him for sure. They're still in the wild card race here. I mean, what do we got? 4 games left to play here. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be real close. I think they were a half game up on Miami going into tonight. They lost to the Braves. So we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. But I don't know. What's your guess here? Do you think they're not gonna finish strong here? You think they're gonna blow it?
Fuck. And the Marlins came back and they're up on the Mets. The Mets are up early on the Marlins. Marlins just scored 2 in the 9th. They're gonna win. I think this is okay. What I think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen is that the Cubs are going to miss the playoffs. I do. I think this team is. I mean, it's hard to come back from a loss as bad as it was last night. You're also playing a really good team as well. On top of it, you've dealt with injuries down the stretch to some of your major players, your closer, your acquired third baseman, first baseman in Jamer, and you're just running out of gas and the magic's just gone. It just feels like, the air is out of the balloon. They want to fight, but they just don't have the arms in the back of the pen. The starting pitching's been faltering here as well lately. It's not great. I mean, that stretch that we had where we were just like grinding it out, winning games, always coming back. Cubs find a way. Cubs are, just dogs, just getting on base, getting over. It almost feels like we're getting a little too tight, right? We're clenching the cheeks a little too tight here down at the last couple games of the season. And the only thing we could hope for is that the Brewers kind of lay down for us. They've already clinched the division, rest some of their people, rest some of their arms, get ready for the playoffs. And we win the last 4 here and make it real interesting.
Yeah, I think that's about it. They're going up to Milwaukee. I don't know, Wrigley North. I don't know how much of a home field advantage that is for the Brewers, but hey, there's still 4 games left. I'm not counting them out yet. I think these are winnable games. They had the Braves in position to beat them the last 2 nights, so maybe they scratch one out tomorrow, and then, like you said, sweep the Braves. Maybe they rest some arms, rest some players, or the Brewers. I'm sorry. Well,
it sucks,
we'll
man.
see.
Let's go to
Yeah,
fantasy. You got
yeah.
some
Let's talk.
you got some pickups for me that dude, okay. For people
Speaking of
listening,
heartbreakers,
I've
yeah,
lost a combined total in our league that Evan's the commissioner of the last 2 weeks, a total combined points of 1.07, I believe is how many I lost by. 0.06 the week
0.06.
before and like some 1 point something, 1.1 this week. So
Brutal. Well, I got some pickups
it's been
for you,
great.
Dan.
It's been
Some
great.
help is on the way. If you need a quarterback, CJ Stroud has looked incredible. Um, Great, 20 plus points the last 2 weeks. Jordan Love's 20 plus points all 3 weeks so far this year. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season? I think everybody kind of wrote him off. If you need a running back, Devon Achan, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's only
Bless you.
41% rostered going into waiver wire Wednesday. So if he's still out there, definitely pick him up. He just dropped almost 50 points. I can't imagine he's still out there on your waiver wire, but if he is, you got to go and grab him. Jalen Warren looks good too. He's been splitting work with Najee. Ditto for Ezekiel Elliott, splitting work with Ramondre Stevenson. And then Kenneth Gainwell is also splitting work with DeAndre Swift. Those are all pretty good backfields. I would look for all those guys who need some running back help. Wide receiver, Tank Dell has looked really, really good the last 2 weeks. I think he scored over 20 points. Same with Adam Thielen for Carolina. And, a little bit of that was with Bryce Young, and a little bit of that was with Andy Dalton. I think Young will be back this week, so we'll see if Thielen can keep it up. But Tank Dell, young guy, Adam Thielen, the old vet. Couple guys to look for, and then Mike Williams of the Chargers is out for the season. He tore his ACL. So you got Quentin Johnston, their rookie, might step up and get some more snaps. I'm sure he will. And then Josh Palmer's kind of been their old reliable wide receiver 3. Usually when he steps up into more routes, he does really well. So I'd probably look for Palmer first, but Quentin Johnston, a nice little guy to stash on the bench. Tight end, Luke Musgrave, I like. He's a name that's probably out there on your wires if you need a tight end. He's playing about 80% of the snaps. He's a rookie, so you never know what you're going to get out of a rookie tight end, but he's running a ton of routes, playing a lot with Jordan Love, who I said was playing well. So he's somebody that I would look for too.
All right, there it is.
That's who I would grab. Dan, you want to run through the week 4 pick'ems?
Let's do it. There's a lot of wild ones last week, a lot of upsets. I don't think anyone really had the Cardinals going out and beating Dallas or the Texans winning their game. And just again, turn it back to the Bears, right? Seeing those two teams pull out victories after kind of being at the bottom of the barrel like the Bears and showing some like upside and like at least a little like, oh, this is what the future could look like. Meanwhile, we just look like an absolute shit show. So it sucks to be us. Week 4 pick 'em. So let's do it.
Yeah, classic. Detroit at Green Bay is a Thursday night.
Detroit. It's going to be fun. I got some fantasy players there.
Sunday, it looks like we got an early morning game here. Falcons at Jags.
Jaguars. Is that a Europe game? Are they like overseas?
So.
Probably,
yeah. Miami at Buffalo.
Miami.
Vikings at Panthers.
Vikings.
Broncos at Bears.
Bears.
Oh,
I've yet to pick them. Maybe that's the problem. I haven't picked them.
Yeah, okay. We'll go with it. Ravens at Browns.
Ravens.
Steelers at Texans.
Texans.
Okay. Rams at Colts.
Colts.
Bucks at Saints.
Bucks.
Commanders at Eagles.
Eagles.
Bengals at Titans.
Bengals.
Raiders at Chargers.
Chargers.
Patriots at Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Cardinals at 49ers.
Niners.
Chiefs at Jets is the night game. That's going to be a disaster.
Chiefs.
And then the Monday nighter is Seahawks at the Giants.
Giants.
Really? Okay.
Need Danny Dimes to start playing here.
Yeah, there you go. Those are your week 4 picks. And that's been our show today. Thanks again to our guest, Herb Howard, for joining us. For Dan Sloak, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.